No, the first Dojin event was when in Thailand again?
It's called Kase, but I cannot remember what year. I'm not sure that I was there or not. I can't remember.
But it was in the
Sure.
90s. Was it in the 90s?
Not sure it's 90. Some say it's 90, some say it's very early 2000.
Well, I mean, I think we can live with that gap.
Yeah.
Because I mean, so here's the interesting thing. I always thought that Thailand actually had a longer history of comic events than Malaysia. But based on what you're saying, right, it does seem like we share very similar backgrounds, like around the same time. I think one big is like, unlike Malaysia, right, Thailand seems to have a much more thriving publishing sort of ecosystem.
Yep.
And I think that makes it a lot more lucrative for events like that to grow and, like, just generally find roots compared to Malaysia. Because one thing, I don't know whether you know, but like Malaysia's publishing market, right, is divided into the 3 languages that we speak.
You told me one.
Right. So for those who don't know, then it is actually a living nightmare for anyone who tries to create content in Malaysia sometimes, because like, really, I speak English reasonably well. People who prefer it in BM, Bahasa Malaysia. There are people who prefer it in Chinese. Then there are people, and when I mean by Chinese, I do mean Mandarin more often than not. And there are people who actually also prefer it in Tamil as well. So because all these languages, and I'm not talking about any other smaller dialects and things like that, but because all these languages are actually actively spoken in Malaysia, when you do a thing like, oh, I'm going to do a BM only, a Bahasa Malaysia only magazine release, right? It's not to say that you can't get a lot of people. Like, you can't get, you get a lot of people, like, there will still have a lot of people who will be buying your magazine or buying your prints and stuff like that. But there is a lot of Chinese speaking people that will just not buy it because it's not easy for them to read,
Understand.
Right. So then what happens is some other people are going to go, okay, since this market is so big, I'm just going to make my product for them. So I'll make a Chinese-based product, or I'll make an English-based product, which a lot of people in Malaysia can speak, or I'll make a Tamil-only product. So what that means, right, is that so different publishers will have different focuses and different, like, strengths and weaknesses. Some people have better distribution, some people have better content generation for specific languages and things like that. So at that point, right, you get this kind of case where the industry is just effectively split between, like, all these kind of different places, and the people who are spending their money also, obviously, like, they're not spending like, oh, this one company gets all the money, or that one company gets all the money, Competition isn't about quality of content. It is just purely, oh, do you actually make the language I'm reading, that you have
And because of the selling is kind of split, so the companies cannot, they cannot grow that much because of the selling.
Correct. So it becomes this kind of weird problem. At least it's true in Malaysia. I think some people will make a case for, and I think it's fair to make a case for, to say, oh, but a lot of Malaysians don't even buy as much books and things like that. I think that's fair to some level. But I think it's also, I think it's also similarly fair to say, like, there's just so many people who would buy it in a very specific language, but not in any other language. So, like, there'll be like 5 different magazines on the shelf, one for BM, one for English, 2 for Chinese, or something like that, and everyone will just be divided amongst these languages.
On that,
I think that affects the quality and the potential of the market as well.
I see. Because, okay, let's say because Thailand is just only dominated by one language, which is Thai. So the competition between companies is become like, okay, we got this, like, from Croatia, or the series from Croatia. The other company said, okay, we got all the IP from Kodansha. the other company said like, okay, we got all this genre of the boy love or the we call like the female focus, something like that.
Yeah,
So
correct.
because of that, the market is kind of divine, but at least they can sell. They can manage to have like the profit enough so they can expand their business.
Right. That's one way of looking at it. That's definitely one very fair way of looking at it. I think the other issue is the example that you were giving, right, is very specific to the type of content they're kicking out. So, like, say, for example, if you're doing Hodansha stuff, right, versus when you're doing Shueisha stuff, if you have the rights for all of Shueisha's work, then all of Shueisha's readers, right, will fall into your lap, right? But in Malaysia, right, you have this problem is, let's say, for example, if you get all of Shueisha stuff, right, and you do it for BM but not for Chinese, for example, then all the Chinese readers will go like, hey, maybe I'll buy, maybe I don't want to buy because it's not in Chinese, you know?
I see.
And then you get some people who are going to go like, oh yeah, it's not in Chinese. Like, what do? I go pirate law. So sometimes you you don't have a choice simply because like some people pirate because it's not in a language that's comfortable for them to read.
I see.
And people eventually become basically non-customers for these type of people.
So it's
Yeah. So this is it. So go ahead.
No, you go first.
Yeah, so when people talk about like piracy being very big in Malaysia, right? I don't disagree with them because it is very big in Malaysia. One part of it is because we're also very cheap, but also because, right, sometimes you just cannot find it at all. It's about access as well. Like, so it's like, oh, I cannot find it in last time we used to have a VCD VHS distribution like retail shop called Speedy. So like if I can't find it in Speedy, right, then like, oh, I can't find it in Speedy, what do? I pirate law, you know?
Understand.
It's like, you know, like, and then like, the Speedy got, but like all the subtitles, it's in Japanese, but all the subtitles are only in Chinese, and I can't read Chinese, for example, right? And what do? Like pirate law.
Then we go, go pirate. This one I kind of curious. Since because in Malaysia, okay, let's say the language used in Malaysia is like 4 major language, right? Chinese, okay. Let me put this way. If I'm pronounced wrong or I'm understand wrong, please forgive me. Is English, Chinese, Malay, and Indian, right?
Tamil, yes.
So it's like, okay, for these 3, okay, let's put aside. I want to know about English one. How about the situation of the English manga in Malaysia? Because you guys believe, because it's supposed to have like the like publisher from overseas that doing the English for the first place.
Oh God, it's horrible. I've had a chat with some people over this, and some of them have told me that some of the localized versions in Malay are not official. Like they don't even license it properly. I don't know which is legal and which one isn't, because to be fair, no person buying magazines off the shelf can actually tell. So we grew up with one of the first Malay comics that I grew up with was Doraemon, right? And it was done by a publisher called Tora Aman. And to me, as far as I knew, they were proper licensed comics. As far as I knew, okay, as far as I knew. But English never had a local Malaysian localizer, as far as I know. I've had some chats with some people. They told me that there were people who were pirating Western comics into BM in Malaysia, and selling them like in small, like A5 size printouts, which were pretty nice apparently. But yeah, English was never a language that you can find Japanese content in. Like if you're a manga fan, it wasn't until Kinokuniya came in, right, that you could get your hands on very reliably on English and Japanese comics.
Yes.
Magazines. It wasn't until Kino that you can get official. Actually, not even. Sorry, I have to be clear on this one. Is English, Japanese, and Chinese comics Chinese and Chinese comics. Yeah. So all these three languages were not legally available in Malaysia until Kinokuniya came in.
I see.
As far as I know.
Be-
I think
okay.
We had a local, just to add, we had a local book distributor, MPH, that I think at some point brought in some stuff. I can't remember whether they came first or did Kinokuniya came first. I really, really can't remember this one. But just as a point of reference, one of the big reasons why when these officially translated imported comics came in, right? They never made it far was because one book in English, one volume in English for any manga, right? On average was 16 to 20 ringgit. This is quite a few years ago.
Sorry, 16 ringgit. Okay.
So for comparison, just for comparison, back in the day, one McDonald's Big Mac meal around the time is about 11 ringgit.
Okay.
So this is so can you imagine, right? If you were growing up as a teenager, you have your allowance to buy food and stuff like that. And you wanted to get into comics, or you like comics, right? You want to buy your comics and stuff like that. The allowance that you have, you can either choose to buy one comic book or 1.5 Big Mac meals. That is the comparison that you have to make.
But okay, this one, what year is happened?
This is sometime in the, I think it would be early 2000s.
Early 2000. Oh, okay.
2000s, yeah. So it's something like that. So I think for like a lot of people, at least in Malaysia, right, it's not like people didn't want to get into the original stuff. It's just really expensive to get into the original stuff. You know?
I see.
Even when they were finally available. Yeah.
I believe this one is the problem with it. Like, I can't remember the English word about to describe about this situation is like because the volume is not enough, so the price of the retail is higher.
Yes and no. What you're talking about, I think, is critical mass. It's basically it's quantity over quality and all that kind of stuff, right? It's about getting enough critical mass so that it's worth like if you order beyond a certain amount, the price will not be dropped down.
Yep.
It's not quite the same. It's more to do with the weird complexity with specifically the Malaysian market. Like I was saying earlier, right? How we started with this topic. We started with this topic talking about how publishing in Thailand versus publishing in Malaysia was different because Malaysia has a market that's made up of all these different languages, right? So what happens is, let's say, for example, you are a licensor, like you want to publish Surasia stuff in Malaysia, right? And you want to print books. Obviously, you want to print books, right? So how do you decide, right? How many books in BM do you want to print versus how many books in English do you want to print versus how many Chinese books do you want to print? You know what I mean?
I see.
So, and keep in mind, every time you print, this is a physical printing, yeah? So you have overhead because you have to pay the printers, obviously, and your translators, right?
Yes.
And then you have your licensing fee for every language, right?
Yes.
And then on top of that, you have to store the thing, distribute the different books, and then on top of that, then recalculate your sales and if there is royalties involved and all that kind of stuff. So you can see the amount of work that gets very complex, right? So if the market isn't big enough, what happens is that some people don't care. Like, it's just not worth my money. I'm just not going to pay for it, you know?
Understand.
So it becomes very difficult and very complex. So what happens in Malaysia is that the closest thing you get, and I hope that these comics were properly licensed, was like the Malay ones will be, in theory, properly licensed. Then you get Chinese ones which are pirated. Because the market is, I don't know lah. Some people say it's too small. I don't have any measure on this. And then the Tamil one doesn't even exist. Like no one does comics in Tamil. I feel very bad for it. Like I feel very sad about it. But it's the market is just so small. So it's just so difficult to make a living out publishing in Malaysia, especially because of how the market is separated.
I see, I see. Because okay, I got the word right now. It's economic upscale. Because of the
Right.
yeah, not enough. Okay, this one actually, this kind of problem is happen but different way in Thailand because during like 90s the manga very cheap and almost every manga is pirating. But if I'm not wrong, actually one of my friend which in my chat right now, I think he can explain more because he's doing all the historic of the manga in Thailand. And he also working for he working inside the industry too. The thing that happened is like during that time, like thinking about 90s Dragon Ball Z on that time, many publishing they pirate and they fight against each other to see who released first. They don't care about the quality. They don't care about the translation. They just let's see who's printing this new volume first. Then there's I think they have like the incident that one of the publishing tried to bash another by saying like, oh, you do the pirating. I'm going to like tell the Japanese company to sue you.
Oh,
Then-
that's reasonable, right?
Yeah, then the company said like, okay, if that going to happen, they just fly straight to the Japan and buying the license.
So did they buy the license in the end?
Yeah, they buy the license. So we have like after like around mid 90s, I mean more than half of the industry is the licensing one. And because of Thai is just only one language, right? And because we have the language barrier, so we only the local can do because of that.
Right. Right.
And one manga is where let's see, is very cheap on that time. It's like thinking of on that time the one that I show I put on the Google Drive, the one that with the talent that is that is one of the oldest manga magazine in Thailand. It's just only 12 baht. 12 baht is during that time I think it's like just half of the meal, the street food meal, the cheap one meal.
Right.
Yeah, and but this one is if I'm not wrong, this one is not yet licensed. But after that, when they have the licensing, the price is around like just only one of the street food meal. So it's very cheap. Sure.
Right. So, but this is exactly like one of the biggest contrasts between the Malaysian market versus any other market in Southeast Asia. Actually,
Yep.
This, unlike a lot of other places, like in Indonesia, Bahasa Indon is spoken widely enough. Yes, there's a lot of dialects, but Bahasa Indonesia as a language is spoken widely enough that if you do something in BI, the whole country will understand you, you know? And that's why, like, it's great for people who want to do, like, I want to target Southeast Asian markets and stuff like that. Then it's very easy for you going to Indonesia, right?
Yep.
The same thing when it comes to Thailand, because Thailand, like, I do Thai, you get access to everybody in Thailand.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, but and that's the same in Vietnam, in any of the big major markets within this region. The complexity in Malaysia, however, right, is because, hey, look, I'm Malaysian, but can you tell? You know, so like I can speak Chinese too.
Yes.
You know, if I want, so like it's really difficult if you're a guy who's trying to figure out how to come into Malaysia, it gets more complex, and some people are going to go like, hey, but and the population of Malaysia is not very big, huh? Is it worth the trouble, you know?
Understand, because of the economy of scale, but the economic but this problem happen right now most of the time because of we have ebook become a thing like around 2000 15 or something like that. The pirating is one thing. The pirating is one problem. The other problem is because we start to have like the ebook during 2000. If I'm not wrong, it's start like 2010 or something like that. And because of that, people start to shifting from buying the magazine to read, go to the internet to read, or buying the ebook to read. So because of the economic of scale is lesser, the price is higher. So nowadays, like if you want to buy a book of manga, it's going to be roughly same as the Big Mac.
I think it's important to recognize like a lot of what you're talking about, at least when it comes to like the shift over to ebooks and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Two big things happen in between. Like number one, the popularization of the internet. Like I it's very important to recognize, because like the more people have access to the internet, the easier people have access to content. Comics is just a form of content, right? So the better your connection is and the easier it is to get access to like different things, then access to the internet. So it becomes easier for you to process content, to consume content through the internet. Can you imagine, right? If you're using like 1990s internet and trying to read a manga, it's gonna kill you. Do you still remember the days when like loading an image took like a minute?
Yes.
And then
for consumer.
Yeah, right. I know, right? Like halfway through, if your image is loading, then someone picks up the phone, your image is like, top of the head.
Yes.
Right. So that kind of thing can happen. So if during those days, right, if you were trying to read a manga which is like 14 pages on average online, right, you'd be oh god.
This cannot happen during that time.
Right. So you just won't do it. It's because it's just so frustrating. It's so much easier. Like I'm just gonna pay the money, I'm just gonna buy my book and go home, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but then so right now, because the internet is so much more easier, so much faster, right? Reading content online is so much more like comfortable. And then you add on top of that, right, the ease of using a smartphone, right? And like you literally have a screen with you all the time that you can read things off, right?
Yes.
Because all those are true, then what happens is that you don't books provide a mobility that is no longer relevant anymore, right? So right now, print media as it is, right, is just harder and harder to survive, At least that's how I would see it. I still love buying books, by the way. I have comics that I have physically here. I have a printed version of Sandman. The Western comic Sandman, right? That is signed by Neil Gaiman. That a friend of mine helped me buy from the UK. It's fantastic. I'm very very happy with that.
Sorry. It's Sandman, the Neil Gaiman, not the Sandman. Oh, okay. I misheard to Sandland. You mean Sandman? Sorry.
Sandman. Right. Yeah, you're talking Sandland from Akira Toriyama, right?
Yeah. But when you say from Neil Gaiman, no matter Sandland or Sandman is the I didn't read the Sandland, but Sandman also the masterpiece.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so where I'm getting at is like print media is sort of like phased out quite a bit, but I still love going to events and like buying dojins and stuff like that. I still love indulging in print media, but I completely understand when a lot of people come and say, hey, I just read my comics or whatever else there is, right, just off my screen. Because it's so much more convenient, right? Yeah. Okay, we're reaching the it's right now 10:30 for me, which means that it's 9:30 for you, right?
Yep.
We are running a little short on time. I want to just open this up real quick. If anyone has any questions for either me or Pochi, please feel free to drop it in the link inside the description. There's a form if you want to. If you want to, you can also try and type it inside the comment section. I'm happy to look at that as well. If I can see your questions, I will try and address to it. There's actually still a lot I want to talk about with you, Pochi, because we haven't even got to the part of you like going mainstream with Tomodachi, with your t-shirts, traveling Southeast Asia, all your experiences going through Southeast Asia, and like some part of this story that we're supposed to go through, we are also supposed to talk about how things have changed over the time that we've had, right? We've only gone through the beginning part of this, and like we've got reached to the start of your story, and we're running a little short on time already. But I want to ask you though,
Sure.
What do you think of your first experience doing an hour plus long podcast in English?
Actually, kind of nervous, bro, because to be honest, it's like I'm trying to fit all the vocabulary in my head, trying to explain the thing that happened, but it's fun. I mean, because we can sharing the situation in each country, we can explore together. You explore Thailand, I explore Malaysia. Then
Exactly.
we can exchange because of the culture is different, but eventually it's parallel culture. We in the same industry, we in the same ACG event, but we just came from different place. That's all.
But I think what's very interesting also, I think it's worth noting though, just to add to that, right? It's also that our timelines are very, very about the same time. Like internet reached countries at around the same time.
Yes.
The ACG culture started blooming around the same time. And I don't think this is true for a lot of other places. Like if you're in the US, I'm quite sure your history with comics is going to be very different. You know? If you're in Japan, your history with Comic Cat and anime content and all that is probably very, very different as well, right? But very specifically, for us, between you and me, yes, I'm Malaysian, yes, you're Thai. Like the differences are not as big as our languages might seem to imply.
Yes.
We might not be able to speak our main country's languages mutually, but yeah, it seems that like we do have a lot more shared history than a lot of people might be aware of.
I can see that in Southeast Asia, we kinda have similar experience because when we receive the culture, we receive mostly about the same time, about almost the same content, but maybe we have localized.
Right. But so here's the thing, right? Sorry, I just for the sake of anyone who's I just want to do a quick sanity check.
Sure.
We were talking about this magazine about 5 or 10 minutes ago. I don't know whether I made the mistake of not putting it up on screen. So for anyone, in case anyone was wondering what we were talking about when we were talking about like magazine licensing and the fact that this costs like Thai 12 baht, which is like half a proper meal. This is the magazine that we were referring to. This is from before they started licensing things properly. And then after that, they started licensing things properly, and it only cost like up to like I would assume it's 24 baht or 25 baht or something along. Yeah. So this is just for records and like anyone, in case I made a mistake of not putting this up on the screen, this is it. Okay. So having said that, yeah. So I was going to say, it's actually surprisingly like yes, we share similar timelines. But one thing that's very interesting is that I think Thailand and it sounds at least from this conversation, Thailand and Indonesia actually share a very similar progression. Though I think Thailand might have been more open towards Japanese media than Indonesia was. So why I say that is because Indonesia and Thailand, at least based on what you've shared with me so far, seem to start around like ACG culture or otaku culture that we know it as like Japanese centric otaku culture, right? Seem to start with tokusatsu. In your case, is Ultraman. In their case, it was I think Kamen Rider and Sentai groups and things like that.
Yeah.
And that was the big one. That was the biggest icons of their country at the time. For Malaysia, my impression, I'm looking for someone to correct me, but my impression was that ours tend to be more anime and comic centric. So like a lot of us, like we saw a lot of HK comics. A lot of I've had on the show, we saw a lot of HK comics, we saw a lot of Doraemon, we saw Lao Fu Zi, things like that.
Actually, to be honest, it's kind of like maybe same. I mean, this is came from my perspective. Like Ultraman, Kamen Rider is become a mainstream, but also like Doraemon or Ikkyu-san, the Buddhist, the kid Buddhist. Yeah.
The kid, oh, okay, that was a different one. Yes.
Yeah,
Ikkyu-san.
or the Ninja Hattori, something like that. It's become a mainstream. Yeah, but to be honest, it's like, but from my perspective, that the one that impact to the society is more from tokusatsu, but it's still, I don't know. To be honest, I can as we mentioned before we start the podcast, this is just my perspective. I cannot represent my whole country.
Look, and I like it was really fascinating. Like one of the reasons, as I said, like one of the big things of what we are doing here is to share like that little window in what we see in our country at a time, right?
Yep.
So what I was just sharing with you is sort of a consolidated story from the different people that I've had on this show. You know? I would love to speak to more people from Indonesia. I would love to speak to more people from Thailand. Just go through histories, and hopefully with more people who share their histories, then we will have a more interesting picture or more sort of reflective picture of the progression for all of us, right? Yeah. So but still, from the small window that you've shared so far, the impression I definitely have is that the tokusatsu is plays a larger role in the initial stages of otaku culture, at least in Thailand and Indonesia so far. You know,
I think, but like Dragon Ball Z also or something like that. Okay, let me think, because when we the first initiate, my memory is tokusatsu during when I was a kid, but when I grow up a bit, like become young teen or like during teenage, is Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, Doraemon, Gundam. That's all I remember.
So fun thing. I don't think Gundam was ever broadcasted in Malaysia.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when you're the when you were talking about Gundam earlier, that was one thing I actually wanted to stop on, because for my side, so this is one thing that's very interesting. Because I found out, and this is only something I found out very recently, by the way. So Malaysia, the broadcaster, official, like the national broadcasters of Malaysia, they tend to take in shows very late. So usually they are times one. You know what I mean? So and what happens from there, right, is that like when I was growing up, like when I was like the early 90s, that kind of time, right, I was watching Simba, the White Lion. Right? I was watching the old Wacky Races, the Hanna-Barbera Wacky Races on national TV, in Malaysia. And you have to keep in mind, these shows, right, if you went back to check, right, they're early 80s shows. Like by the point that I was watching them, they were at least about anywhere between 8 to 10 years old already. You know, I'm misremembering the timeline, but they're about that. They're not new. Let's say they're pretty old by that point. And the reason why I say this, right, is because it screws up my sense of timing. Because when people talk about like, oh, these shows are really old, and I'm like, but I watched them as a kid, and it's nothing to do with my age, by the way. It's really because the TV stations in Malaysia, they only took it in that time. By that time, you know, the time I was starting to watch it, it was so late. You know? It was so late that that it was new to me. It was new to people in Malaysia who has never watched anything else, because this is obviously before the internet, right? But to anyone else, like, so to us it was new, but to everyone else who, like, you know, if you're in Japan watching, like, Kimba is like 80s show, it's an early 80s show.
Yes.
Right. So like to you guys who, if you watched the first time when it first came out, it's like, what the hell is this? This is like 10 years old by the time I was watching it.
I see.
You know, and it's very, very different.
I mean, in this country, they have like their own timeline, regulation, many things. Because I am trying to remember, because the Gundam, I think the Gundam, first time I know is not by watching. It's not by watching the anime. It's okay. Some of the animes came like from the VHS during that time. But the like Wataru, Macross, Gundam, something like that. But the thing that make me know Gundam is actually came from Gunpla. During that time, we were going to the kid department at the mall. So there we saw the robot with the cool antenna, and we know it's Gundam. Also,
I'll be honest with you.
Sure.
I'll be honest with you. I can't remember how I found out about Gundam anymore. Like I think I knew it was an anime before I saw the models. I'm not sure.
Huh? You're not what?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether I knew it was an anime before I saw the models.
I see.
I'm not sure whether I knew about the models first or did I know about the anime first. I really, really don't remember.
Understand. Because it's very hard to find or watch. I know that only in Thailand we have like before I was born, they're airing the 007 1 Year's War, the first Gundam on the public television. But that one I don't have memory about it. And some said like it's like before I was born. So okay, but eventually they have someone that upload on YouTube like the video, the file from that era, but it's just only one part, just only one episode, which is kind of feel like okay, the voice actor is really old and the translation is really weird, but understandable because it might came from like 40 or 50 years ago, like that. But as I told you, I think in Thailand we know Gundam not because of anime, but because of we go to the toy department.
Yeah, exactly, right. So but that's exactly it. Like how you mentioned that you got into Tamiya because of your dad and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
I knew I got into Tamiya because my schoolmates were into it. And I was like, oh, hey, some toys, and I was just gonna like figure out how to make one. I never really got into the modification stuff, like not the heavy stuff. I just did a little bit of it, and that's about it. But the anime came out, I was watching it like crazy because I thought it was really fun. I thought it was really silly. But yeah, but it never struck me as much as it might have for some other people. For me, my first impressions were all the cartoons I grew up with. But my exposure to cartoons were everything from actually my first cartoons were exactly Imba, Speed Racer, and Hanna-Barbera cartoons and all that kind of stuff. Then later, before we go off, I also want to ask one quick thing.
Sure.
As a quick thing, when you were growing up, did they have sort of kid show presenters in Thailand where like they were like, oh hey, this is a segment sponsored by so and so. My name is whatever. This is what show we're going to be watching after this. Did you ever have that in Thailand?
How should I put this? Yes, we have before, and the one that the most popular actually after I become teenage, during the time of the Digimon.
Right.
You remember that time, right? The Digimon one.
Right.
Everyone can like singing the Digimon song, right? And I'm not sure because in Thailand we have our own version of the song. we have our own version, and the singer is like, okay, as I told you, the TV channel that airing the anime for kids on the weekend. Yes, they're doing the song, and they have the kid presenter, and the kid presenter nowadays owning the animation companies. I mean the publishing, the distributor in Thailand.
Wait. Sorry. What? Like he's the kid presenter owns the publisher in Thailand.
Yes.
So from presenting TV shows, he became basically the rights holder for some of these shows right now.
Yes. Because in Thailand we have like our version, and it's like, let me check. ออกอาวุธที่พัฒนามาเป็นชุด
So the reason why I asked is because this is a funny thing that we like. I've once again I've run this show for like 12 times, right? I never got a chance. It's so rare that I it's because most of the time I let my guest and my or sometimes my co-host basically like walk us through what they want to share, kind of thing, what they felt was important for them and things like that. But because I'm speaking to you, and like because I'm very curious about Thailand's history as well, like the kind of cultural like habits and events that happen in Thailand. And one of the things that I never thought to ask for anyone else, especially those who were in Malaysia, was whether this was something that was true. Whether you guys had kid shows where, once again, presenters come in and say, "Hey, yeah, this entire segment is sponsored by, for example, KFC," because we had that.
Same.
Yeah, and then they will play a bunch of cartoons during that time, and it's Saturday morning cartoons, and then I can't remember. I think X-Men was part of the KFC roll up for us last time, or something like that. Yeah. So like I was growing up, I was watching X-Men, and they would be part of that whole KFC segment and things like that. I just didn't know whether that was something true for Thailand as well.
On that, I remember. Okay, my memory is during when I was a kid. There's not yet the presenter, if I'm not wrong, or there's maybe a presenter already, like thinking about like the Disney Channel, something like that.
Right. Disney Channel had something like that too.
Yeah. But the okay, for sure is during when I was a teenage, like the Digimon era, that time already have, and there's many like anime opening that translate into Thai, or having like Thai version, like Gundam Wing also have like their song too, and the kid. Okay, from my chat said like I think the kid presenter is like the family business. I mean they are the kid from the like the licensing holder, and nowadays they take control of the family business. If I'm not wrong, I'm not sure, to be honest. And during that time, the cable TV doesn't have the Japanese anime, but they're using like they have the Western cartoon instead, like Conan the Barbarian, something like that, but not the
Conan the Barbarian?
Not the Savage version. Is the more like the hero version.
Yeah. No. Like that's freaking amazing because we never got it. I don't think we got it. Did we get it? I don't remember getting it.
Not sure. I mean, during that time, and we have like the TV show. It's not a kid, but it's like the presenter, like to talking to the audience, something like that.
Yeah. So your presenter basically took on the family business, and which was the family business, which was very specifically like being a rights holder, being a publisher for all these kind of shows and stuff like that. Right?
If I'm not wrong, but to be honest, is the same kid that singing the song and become the presenter. That's nowadays his own the company that own the rights of the anime.
Actually, this is gonna sound very rude. But
Sure.
Why does it sound like nepotism?
To be honest, is I think what would you mean? Patriotism.
Okay, so yeah, I figured that might be a word I need to explain.
Okay.
So nepotism is when someone is put in a particular role, or rather you give opportunities to people that belong in your own family, as opposed to other people, because they are your own family. So a very good example of this would be like, like if you're, for example, the big boss, right? And like the CEO of a large company, and then you're like, I need a division chief. Instead of finding somebody inside the company, you give it to your son.
To be honest, it's normal thing happen here. So it's I can't say it can be like it can be the negative thing. In the other hand, it's a normal thing that happened.
No. So I want to make a very important point here first, right? Okay. So I say, so usually when people talk about nepotism, they're usually talking about it in a bad way. Because what happens is that usually they talk about how these people are put in the roles when they have no qualifications for it. Like they're not, they have no history with the company. They don't know how to do the work. They're just going to be horrible in the role. And they're only given it so that like they have it's because the father wants to take care of the son or something like that, that kind of thing. That's what usually when we talk about nepotism, that's what we're talking about. There is a very reasonable way to look at it where it's like, it's a family business. Like you say, it's a family business, right?
Yep.
And it's like, I trained my son to take care of the business, so I'm giving him the role,
Yep.
That's a very reasonable approach towards it.
Yes.
So it's not to say it cannot be done. I'm just saying that, like, it sounds like from what you said, like it's all the opportunities are given to the child, and like, could somebody do it better? I can't tell because I've never watched it.
Because from my friend, the anime historian, he said like because on that era, I mean, this happened like during the 90s. On that era, it's not like we have like the children's star, the star kid that doing the presenter for the show. If not, they're going to very expensive. If they are the kid star, so instead of hiring outside, they just push someone from inside.
Okay, I want to ask on this one. So on that note, right, just as a quick check,
Sure.
Was there a lot of shows in Thailand at the time, right, that was dubbed into Thai, or is it just subbed?
Dub.
It's all dubbed. It's
Yes,
all dubbed into
dubbed.
Thai. That is fantastic because, so here's the thing. Most shows in Malaysia, as far as my memory goes, were, I think a lot of them did use the English dubs for a while. Like I remember Pokemon was broadcasted in English in Malaysia. Doraemon was the first one that I can remember that was dubbed in BM. Yeah. So and then Sailor Moon was dubbed in BM as well when it did come out in Malaysia. I think I remember so at one point Malaysia had cable TV. And the cable channels that were doing anime stuff, they themselves also dubbed it. So I think
I see.
a couple of shows that stood out was like Akatsuki Chacha. That one was dubbed in BM as well. When AXN came to Malaysia, I don't remember whether that was dubbed. I think that might have
AXN
been
supposed to be dubbed in English, if I'm not wrong.
Right. So that's why I think I remember like they either took it in English or the original Japanese, and then they were only subbed, if I'm not mistaken.
I see. Because in Thailand, it's always dubbed in Thai, and we have like the legendary. This is also long, sorry, bro. How about next time, next week, or anytime I want to talking about this, I want to tell you about our legendary Seiyu.
Okay, that's a date. We're running out of time tonight, so that is going to be a date. We are going to reschedule a new one as soon as we can. I don't know when that's going to be.
Let me check my schedule too.
Yeah, you let me know. Your schedule is more busy than mine, so you let me know when you're available. All right.
Okay.
So let's continue this discussion again soon because there seems to be a lot to go into. We haven't even, as I said, we haven't even, so far I think we stopped in the 2010s. Our story has stopped down to the 2010s, so that's like 10 years worth of story that we haven't even shared about yet.
It's sometimes it's just jump back and forth.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So for just as a quick wrap up, so I didn't get any questions. I'm going to leave it at that. But for everyone who has joined us tonight, I hope you had a wonderful time. If you want more Pocky stuff, his links, his socials are actually linked in the description down below. His Twitter account, his Facebook, his YouTube, please go there and like and subscribe. If you like what we've been doing here, please like and subscribe here in this channel as well. Next session that I will be having is 2 weeks from now. This is actually my usual schedule where I stream this segment, this specifically Geeks at Sea segment, once every 2 weeks. The next segment I'm going to have is a very unique one because I'm not going to be talking about anime as much. Instead, who I have is that I have actually one of the people involved in the Singapore Games Association. Her name is Cheryl. And she was one of the she's a person that was very involved in the Singapore games industry in this last decade or so. She stepped down, and we were talking, and we were like, "Oh yeah, let's share some stories from behind the scenes about games development, growing up in Singapore, and all that kind of stuff." And so 2 weeks from now, that's which is August 16th. Yes, is it 16th? Yes, 16th. So 2 weeks from now, I'll be having Cheryl on. Look forward to that.
Sure.
Yeah, and when Tuck finally has a window for me again, we'll have this again soon.
Okay. Actually, there's a lot of things I want to share. Also,
Thank you so much.
Also about gaming industry in Thailand too.
So here's the thing. I know we're supposed to wrap up, but I feel like if we're talking about the games industry in Thailand, I have so many questions because the fact is, and this is industry information, yeah.
Yes.
Those who don't know, yeah. If you are looking to publish games in Southeast Asia, the two biggest markets that everyone looks at, number one.
Indo.
Actually, technically, top three. No, top three. Let's talk top three. Top three. Number one is actually Singapore. Because of spending power. Because of the Singapore dollar makes spending power very easy. So, like, if you're doing microtransactions, especially in games in the games industry, targeting Singapore, which you usually do it in English, is a favorite because people are very able. They can afford the money, lah. It's true in Singapore. Then it becomes a two-way split between Thailand and Indonesia. These are the top three in the markets in Southeast Asia. The reason why this is split, and the reason why this is split is because Indonesia makes up for in population, meaning that the number of people in Indonesia is so many because population density is so high that most people, like, even if everyone spends 1 cent, you still earn a lot of money. Then the other side is Thailand. Thailand is a little bit more harder because again, obviously you need to do Thai.
Yes.
But it is one of the most developed industries in Southeast Asia.
Just Bangkok, I think.
That's fair. So by the way, which is why actually when we first started this segment, one of the questions I was asking is like, oh, this is based in Bangkok, right? Like, so, and so a lot of these kind of things, sometimes we are looking at things purely from the cities, and that's a very different conversation also as well, because there's a lot of stuff a lot of the things that we're sharing with you are based in Kuala Lumpur, which is one of the main capitals in Malaysia, which is a lot more developed than a lot of other places. I'm actually looking to try and see what I can find people to talk about Sabah and Sarawak, which is a different market altogether. Which has its own very, very interesting stories, I believe. Yeah. Anyways, with that, we can continue on already after this, if this is the case.
Okay, then anyways, maybe next time or after we finish the stream.
Yes. So, Pochi, do you have anything you want to share before we go off? Is there anything you want to talk about before we go off? Last things.
Thank you for coming, everyone. This is my first English podcast. So, okay, hopefully, if I'm do something wrong or maybe because of the language barrier, I might mistranslate my intention. I would like to apologize. That's all. And for my audience, okay, let me speak in Thai just a bit. สำหรับทุกท่านที่มารับชมกันอยู่นะครับก็ลิงก์อยู่ในช่อง description แล้วไม่ว่าตอนนี้มันจะไปอยู่ทางตรงไหนก็ตามนะฮะก็ฝากกดไลค์กดแชร์กด subscribe แล้วก็กดดูในส่วนของทางช่องของทางคุณจาเรตแล้วก็ shit I forgot that I never mentioned you as Jared ช่วยกดของทางคุณบิมจิสตรีมไว้ด้วยนะครับเพราะว่าเดี๋ยวเผื่อถ้าเกิดว่าใครที่สามารถฟังภาษาอังกฤษได้แล้วก็จะได้มาฟังพอดแคสต์เรื่องราวต่างๆไปด้วยกัน so I just tell everyone that please go subscribe and because you have the podcast with the about the behind the scene and the about the industry in Malaysia.
Yeah, so a lot of it we haven't managed to go. I'll be honest here. So first, you're not doxing me. Don't worry. I do introduce myself as Jared more than half the time, so it's perfectly fine.
Sorry.
So that's number one. Number two, a lot of what we have done so far, we talked about a lot of history. A lot of the segments that I've done a lot of history about the development of culture and events here within the region. But I have not covered as much of the industry as I think I would have preferred. This is an ongoing project, something that I hope I can continue on doing for a while. So any amount of support that you guys can show would be great. Thank you very much.
Please consider subscribe. Like that. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Khab. Thank you, Khab.
Thank you guys very much. Till next time then. I hope I get to see you guys again soon. Doc, please let me know when you have a window again. I hope to be able to continue this conversation with you again very, very soon. For everyone else, thank you guys very much. Have a wonderful weekend ahead of you guys. Good night. Bing bong.
Bye bye.